On the night of her wedding, Emily Carter vanished, leaving Maplewood shaken by whispers of love, betrayal, and unfinished choices. At the center of it all was Ben Parker, the man from her past whose sudden return stirred doubts she could no longer silence. But when a forgotten roll of film surfaced 14 years later, the truth shattered everything her family thought they knew. And just listen to how shocking the twist in this drama turned out to be, and why justice ultimately prevailed. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the town of Maplewood as the wedding reception for Emily Carter and Jake Thompson unfolded in the grand ballroom of the Maplewood Country Club. The laughter of guests mingled with the clinking of glasses and soft music, creating an atmosphere that was both festive and serene. But amidst the celebration, a sense of unease quietly lingered, unnoticed by most. Emily, a radiant bride in a flowing white gown, seemed to sparkle with happiness as she danced with her new husband. Yet beneath her beautiful smile lay a heart burdened with doubt. She had always envisioned this day as a fairy tale, but as the night progressed, reality crept in. Shadows of her past loomed like specters, whispering doubts that stole away her joy. "Are you okay, Em?" Jake leaned in close, his voice a soothing balm to her frayed nerves. His deep brown eyes searched hers, filled with love and concern. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile. But as she glanced across the room, her eyes landed on an old friend, Ben Parker, who was talking animatedly with a group of guests. Memories flooded back, memories of laughter, secrets, and the last time she'd seen him, the day she decided to marry Jake. Her heart raced, not from excitement, but from the weight of unfinished business. As the evening wore on, Emily excused herself, claiming she needed some fresh air. She stepped outside onto the balcony, the cool night breeze brushing against her skin. The stars twinkled overhead, but they offered little comfort. She felt trapped in a gilded cage, the expectations of her life closing in around her. "Emily," a familiar voice called softly from behind her. She spun around to find Ben leaning against the doorframe, a pained expression etched on his face. "I saw you slip away and thought I'd find you." "What are you doing here, Ben?" she asked, her heart pounding. "You weren't invited." "I know, but I couldn't miss your wedding," he admitted, stepping closer. "I had to see you one last time." "Last time," she echoed, confusion washing over her. "What do you mean?" Ben hesitated, his eyes searching hers. "I'm leaving town. I got a job offer in Chicago. I wanted to say goodbye. Properly." Emily's heart sank. The choice she had made, to marry Jake, had not been easy. Ben had been her anchor during turbulent times, and now, standing before him, she felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest like a stone. "You should have told me sooner," she said, her voice trembling. "We could have done something." "There's nothing to be done, Em. You chose him," Ben replied, pain flickering in his eyes. Suddenly, the sound of laughter from the reception echoed through the night, reminding her of the life she was stepping into. "I should go back inside," she said, turning away. "Jake will be looking for me." "Are you happy?" Ben's question hung in the air, heavy and charged. "Is this what you really want?" Emily felt a surge of anger at the question, but deep down, uncertainty gnawed at her. "Of course I am," she snapped, but the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. "Are you sure?" Ben pressed, stepping closer, his voice softening. "You don't have to do this. You can still change your mind." Tears pricked at her eyes as the weight of his words crashed over her. "What do you want me to say, Ben? That I regret it? That I wish things were different?" "No," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "I want you to be honest with yourself. This isn't just about you and Jake. It's about your happiness, your future." The wind picked up, swirling around them, and Emily felt her resolve crumbling. "I can't just walk away, Ben. I've made my choice." "Is it truly your choice, or is it what everyone expects you to choose?" he challenged. The intensity of Ben's gaze pierced through the facade she had built around herself. Emily felt as if the walls were closing in. The laughter from the reception had faded, leaving only the pounding of her heart. I, I don't know," she whispered, the admission spilling from her lips before she could stop it. "I thought this was what I wanted. I thought marrying Jake would make everything better." Ben reached out, taking her hands in his, grounding her in the moment. Then you should explore that. You owe it to yourself to be true to who you are, not who everyone else wants you to be. Emily's breath quickened as a wave of guilt washed over her. I can't do this now. It's not fair to Jake. Fair. Ben's voice dropped to almost a whisper. What's fair about sacrificing your happiness for others? You deserve to live your truth. Just then, the doors to the ballroom swung open, and Jake stepped out, his expression shifting from joy to concern as he spotted them. Emily, there you are. I was worried. He glanced at Ben, a flicker of tension rising in the air. Everything's fine, Jake, she said quickly, pulling her hands away from Ben's grasp. I just needed some air. Jake's eyes narrowed, sensing the unspoken tension. Let's get back inside then. Everyone is waiting for us. As Emily turned back toward the reception, the weight of her choice settled heavily on her shoulders. The moment with Ben had ignited a spark of doubt that she couldn't ignore. But just as quickly, the thought of disappointing Jake, a man who loved her fiercely, pulled her back into the safety of the expected. But as she walked away, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving behind a part of herself. The night continued, filled with laughter and celebration, but within her, a storm brewed, a conflict between her desires and the life she had chosen. Little did she know, the decisions made that night would ripple through time, leading to a revelation that would change everything. 14 years later, a forgotten roll of film would expose the truth, unraveling the tangled web of choices and consequences. Emily's story was far from over. It was only just beginning. Emily lingered on the balcony, the cool night air wrapping around her like a shroud, stark against the warmth of the celebration inside. The sounds of laughter and clinking glasses faded into a murmur, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves swaying in the gentle breeze. She felt her heart race, caught in the crossfire of conflicting emotions. The golden hues of the sunset had surrendered to a deep indigo sky, stars beginning to prickle the darkness overhead, each one a whisper of unfulfilled dreams. Emily! Jake's voice broke through her reverie, laced with concern. He stepped outside, the glow from the ballroom spilling onto the balcony like a warm embrace. For a moment, she wanted to dissolve into the shadows, to escape the reality of his questioning gaze. But she stood still, her back to the door, the cool metal railing digging into her palms. Just getting some air, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She turned to face him, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a reflection of her true self. It's beautiful out here. Jake's brow furrowed slightly as he approached, his eyes scanning her face for signs of distress. You've been gone a while. I thought you might be lost in thought. He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. A gentle gesture, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. I was, she admitted, swallowing hard as she recalled Ben's words. I just needed a moment. Jake nodded, though the tension in his shoulders betrayed his worry. I understand. It's a lot, you know. He gestured back toward the bustling reception. All these people looking at us, expecting us to be perfect. Perfect, she echoed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. She wanted to tell him about Ben, about the way his presence had stirred something deep within her, something she thought she had buried. Instead, she remained silent, grappling with the weight of her secrets. Come on, let's head back in, Jake urged, his tone softening. I want to dance with my beautiful bride. He held out his hand, and for a fleeting moment, she hesitated. The warmth of his touch felt inviting, yet it also reminded her of the distance growing between them. The reception hall was a kaleidoscope of color and sound. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, casting a soft glow on the guests, who twirled and swayed to the rhythm of a lively band. The aroma of rich food and sweet cake mingled in the air, but all Emily could feel was the weight of expectation pressing down on her chest. As they stepped back inside, she caught a glimpse of Ben at the edge of the crowd, his presence a beacon that drew her attention. He was deep in conversation with another guest, laughter spilling from his lips, and for a heartbeat, she was transported back to simpler days. The carefree summers spent together, the secrets shared beneath the stars. Emily, Jake's voice pulled her back to the present, a hint of confusion in his eyes. Are you okay? Yeah, of course, she said quickly, forcing her attention back to him. She plastered on a smile, determined to push aside her doubts. Let's dance. As Jake led her to the center of the floor, Emily tried to focus on the moment. on the way his hands cradled her waist, how he looked down at her with such earnest affection. But her thoughts flickered like a candle in the wind, always returning to Ben, the way he challenged her, the way he made her feel seen. The music swelled, and they moved together, a practiced rhythm that felt both familiar and foreign. Jake's eyes sparkled with joy, but Emily sensed the shadows lurking beneath the surface of her smile. She felt the weight of the moment, the culmination of all her choices leading to this single dance, this single night. "Do you remember our first dance?" Jake asked suddenly, his voice low, intimate. He leaned closer, and Emily felt the warmth of his breath against her ear. "At the summer festival, you were so nervous." A ghost of a smile tugged at her lips as memories flooded back, her clumsy steps, her laughter mingling with the music, and Jake's steadying presence guiding her through her uncertainty. "I do," she said softly. "You made me feel like I could do anything." "Just like tonight," he replied, pulling back to look into her eyes. "You can do anything, Em. We're in this together." The sincerity in his gaze tugged at her heart, but the shadows of doubt loomed larger. She wanted to believe him, to surrender to the life they were building together, but the image of Ben lingered in her mind like a stubborn stain. As the song faded, a slow ballad began to play, and Jake drew her closer, their bodies swaying in time with the haunting melody. Emily felt the warmth of his arms, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her own. Yet even in this moment of intimacy, a flicker of longing for something else, a different kind of connection, ignited within her. "Are you happy?" she found herself asking, the words slipping out before she could stop them. The vulnerability in her voice surprised even her, and she felt the tension shift in the air. Jake paused, his brow furrowing with concern. "Of course I am. Why do you ask?" She wanted to tell him about the doubt swirling in her mind, the way Ben's laughter had echoed in her heart, but instead she shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "Just curious," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Emily, you can talk to me about anything," he said earnestly, his hands tightening around her waist. "You know that, right?" She nodded, forcing another smile, but inside she felt like a ship caught in a storm, tossed between two shores, one of societal expectation and the other of personal desire. She wanted to reach out, to confide in him, but the fear of shattering the fragile happiness they had created held her back. "I know," she finally said, her voice steady. I want this to be perfect." "It is perfect," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "We're together, and that's all that matters." As the song ended, applause erupted around them, and Jake's face broke into a grin. "Let's grab a drink," he suggested, pulling her toward the bar. The clamor of voices and laughter swirled around her, but Emily felt detached, her thoughts still lingering on Ben, on the unresolved feelings that gnawed at her heart. They reached the bar and Jake ordered a couple of drinks while Emily scanned the crowd, her eyes instinctively searching for Ben. It felt like an unquenchable thirst, a yearning for something she couldn't quite articulate. But he was gone, lost in the sea of faces, and the realization sent a pang of regret through her. "Here you go," Jake said, handing her a glass of sparkling champagne. "To us." "To us," she echoed, raising her glass. The bubbles danced in the light, and she took a sip, letting the effervescence burst against her tongue. But the taste felt hollow, a reminder of the disparity between her reality and her desires. As they moved through the crowd, Emily tried to engage with the guests, to immerse herself in the festivities, but her mind was a tangled web of thoughts. Each laugh, each toast, felt like an echo of the choices she'd made, the life she'd chosen. "Do you want to go talk to some of your friends?" Jake asked, noticing her distraction. "I can grab us some food." Emily hesitated, her gaze drifting back toward the balcony, where shadows danced under the soft glow of the lights. "Maybe just for a moment," she replied, her heart racing with the longing to escape, to find solace in that quiet space. "Okay, I'll be right back," Jake said with a smile, moving away among the guests. Alone in the thrumming heart of the reception, Emily felt the walls close in around her. She maneuvered through the crowd, her heart heavy with the weight of her choices. The laughter and chatter grew louder, a stark contrast to the silence she craved. Finally, she slipped outside onto the balcony, the cool air washing over her like a balm. She leaned against the railing, looking out into the darkened expanse of the garden below. The moon hung high, casting silvery light on the path, illuminating the shadows that danced just beyond her reach. "Hey!" A familiar voice broke through the silence, and she turned to find Ben standing there, his presence both a comfort and a conflict. "I was hoping you'd come back out." "Ben," she breathed, the sound escaping her lips like a sigh. "I thought you left." "I couldn't," he admitted, stepping closer, his expression earnest. "I wanted to say goodbye properly." Her heart raced as the air thickened between them, each word hanging like an unspoken promise. "Are you sure you have to go?" He nodded, the weight of his decision evident in his eyes. "I have to take this job. It's a big opportunity." The ache in her chest deepened. "But what about us?" "Emily," he started, his voice low and filled with emotion. "You know there's something special between us. But you're married now. I can't come between that." "I don't want you to," she replied, the words tumbling out before she could catch them. "But I can't help feeling—" Conflicted. He finished for her, his gaze piercing. "You've made a choice and it's a good one. I see the love Jake has for you. But what if I'm not ready for this life?" She said, the admission a fragile thread between them. "What if I'm just holding on to the idea of what I'm supposed to be?" Ben took a step closer, his eyes searching hers. "Then you need to figure it out. You owe it to yourself to be honest about what you want." In that moment, the weight of the world shifted, and Emily felt the stirrings of clarity beneath the confusion. The choice she had made, the beautiful wedding, the adoring husband, they were all pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit. "Maybe I do need to figure it out," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But how?" Ben reached out, brushing his thumb over her hand, a simple gesture that ignited a spark of something deeper. "By being true to yourself, Emily. That's the only way you'll find peace." As their eyes locked, the world around them faded, the sounds of the celebration dimming to a distant hum. In that moment of connection, she felt the boundaries of her life blur, the questions and fears coalescing into a single thought. She couldn't keep running from herself. "Emily, Ben started, but before he could finish, the door swung open, and Jake stepped outside, his expression shifting from joy to confusion as he took in the scene before him. "Is everything okay out here?" he asked, his voice laced with worry. Emily's heart raced, caught between the two men who represented two vastly different paths. The air crackled with tension, and she felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The moment hung suspended, a fragile balance on the edge of revelation. "Yeah," she lied, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "Just talking." Jake's gaze flickered between them, the unease palpable. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure you were all right." Emily opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She was trapped, a delicate thread weaving through the fabric of her life, and the choice before her felt more daunting than ever. "Everything's fine," she said finally, the words tasting hollow. "Really?" But as she looked into Jake's eyes, she knew the truth was far more complicated. The evening loomed ahead, filled with laughter and celebration. But within her, a storm raged, one that would lead her to confront the very heart of her choices. The night continued, the party swirling around her like a tempest. And as Emily stood between the two men, one foot in the past and one in the present, she realized that the answers she sought were not just about love or desire. They were about discovering who she truly was beneath the weight of expectations. And somewhere in the shadows of that celebration, a forgotten roll of film was waiting, poised to expose the secrets that would unravel everything she thought she knew. The tension in the air thickened as Emily stood on the balcony, the cool night breeze brushing against her skin, momentarily cooling the heat of her spiraling thoughts. The golden hues of the sunset had surrendered to a deep indigo, leaving the stars to twinkle like distant promises. She could hear the muffled laughter and clinking glasses from the reception hall behind her, a stark contrast to the quiet chaos she felt within. Jake's voice cut through the distance, an anchor amidst the swirling storm of her emotions. "Em, is everything okay?" His concern was palpable, a warm light in the encroaching darkness. She turned, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression. "Just needed some air," she replied, her voice steady but her heart racing. She could see the frown creasing his brow, the way his eyes searched hers for the truth she couldn't fully articulate. I'm fine, really. But she wasn't fine. The echoes of her conversation with Ben lingered in her mind, each word a reminder of the life she could have chosen, the paths untaken. The fleeting moments shared with him felt like shards of glass embedded in her heart, beautiful yet painful. Jake stepped closer, his presence warm and reassuring. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, grounding her momentarily. I just want you to be happy. His sincerity tugged at the corners of her heart. She wanted to believe that happiness was within her grasp, that it lay in the life they had built together. But the haunting question loomed larger. Was it truly the life she desired, or just the one everyone expected her to live? I know, Jake. It's a big day, and She hesitated, the weight of her unspoken fears threatening to spill over. I thought I'd feel different, more sure of everything. Jake's brow furrowed deeper, the lines of worry etching into his forehead. Emily, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. We can figure it out together. His voice was soft, inviting her to lay bare her tumultuous thoughts. Yet she remained hesitant. Before she could respond, the sliding glass door to the balcony creaked open, and Ben stepped out, his expression a mix of uncertainty and determination. The air shifted, charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Emily's heart raced again, the pull between her past and present intensifying. Hey, Ben greeted, his voice low, almost hesitant. He glanced at Jake, then back at Emily, his gaze lingering a moment longer. I didn't mean to interrupt. No, it's okay, Emily replied, her pulse quickening. She could feel the gravity of the moment, the way everything seemed to hang in the balance. Jake's presence felt like an anchor, but Ben was the wind that stirred her sails, pushing her toward uncharted waters. I just wanted to check on you, Ben continued, his tone sincere. You seemed distant back there. He gestured toward the reception, where the festivities continued in full swing, oblivious to the emotional turbulence outside. I'm fine, she repeated, but the word felt hollow this time. The truth danced on the tip of her tongue, begging to be released. But which truth? Was it the one that favored a life of stability with Jake, or the one that called to her heart through memories of laughter with Ben? Jake shifted slightly, sensing the tension that had returned. Why don't we all go back inside? He suggested, his voice steady, though the underlying tension was palpable. The night is still young, and I think we should celebrate. Emily glanced between the two men, the weight of the moment crashing down on her. She could see the concern in Jake's eyes, the way he tried to shield her from the chaos of her emotions. And Ben, with his unyielding gaze, seemed to hold a mirror to her soul, reflecting the choices she had buried deep within. Actually, she began, her voice shaking slightly, I think I need a moment. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Just a moment to think. Jake's expression shifted from concern to understanding, and he nodded slowly. If that's what you need, Em, just don't take too long, okay? Yeah, of course. She watched as he stepped back inside, closing the door gently behind him, the faint sounds of the reception fading into the distance. For a moment, the world outside felt suspended, leaving her alone with Ben, the air between them thick with unresolved tension. I didn't mean to intrude, he said quietly, his eyes searching hers for permission to speak. But I wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm trying to be, Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But everything feels so complicated right now. Ben took a step closer, the distance between them charged with a magnetic pull. You don't have to pretend with me, Em. You can be honest about how you feel. I know you're struggling. The softness in his tone melted some of the ice surrounding her heart. It's just, she hesitated, the words tangled in her throat. I thought marrying Jake would bring me clarity, but instead I feel more lost than ever. Maybe it's not about clarity, he suggested gently. Maybe it's about being true to yourself, even if that means facing uncomfortable truths. There was a vulnerability in his eyes that resonated with her own hidden fears. What if being true to myself means hurting Jake? she asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. He loves me, and I care about him, but you also care about what you want, Ben finished for her, his gaze steady and understanding. It's okay to feel conflicted, Emily. It's okay to question everything. She inhaled deeply, the cool air filling her lungs as her heart raced. Sometimes I wish I could just escape all of this. Start fresh somewhere where no one knows my name, where I can just be. The longing in her voice was palpable, a yearning for freedom she had never fully acknowledged until now. Ben's expression softened, and for a moment, the world around them faded. I get that. I've felt that way too, like I'm trapped in a life that's not mine. But running away doesn't always solve the problem. Then what do I do? She asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. The vulnerability in her tone hung in the air, an invitation for honesty. Maybe it's not about running away, Ben replied, stepping closer still. Maybe it's about confronting what's holding you back and deciding if it's worth keeping in your life. His eyes bore into hers, filled with an understanding that made her heart ache. Emily felt a swell of emotions crash over her, the weight of his words sinking in. Could she really confront her fears? Could she untangle the threads of her life and weave something new from the remnants? The thought terrified her, yet a spark of hope ignited within her. Before she could respond, the sound of laughter erupted from the reception hall, a reminder of the world they had temporarily stepped away from. What if we just took a break from it all? Ben suggested, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. What if we went for a walk, just for a little while? Out there, she asked, glancing toward the expansive grounds of the country club, where the moonlight illuminated the manicured lawns and glistening fountains. The idea felt liberating, yet terrifying. Just a little escape, he said, his voice coaxing her. You deserve a moment to breathe. Emily hesitated, her heart racing at the notion of stepping away from the expectations that had been placed upon her. Okay, she finally said, the word escaping her lips like a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Just a moment. Ben smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from him. He extended his hand, and for a heartbeat, she hesitated before taking it, feeling the heat of his palm against hers. Together, they stepped away from the world that had been so carefully constructed around her, into the night that held both uncertainty and possibility. As they wandered into the moonlit garden, Emily felt a sense of liberation wash over her. The weight of expectations momentarily lifted. Beneath the stars, she could almost hear the whispers of her dreams, long buried beneath layers of obligation. And for the first time in years, she felt the stirring of something deeper within her, a yearning for self-discovery, a desire to forge her own path, no matter where it might lead. In that moment, beneath the canvas of the night sky, she began to embrace the complexity of her feelings, the intertwining threads of love and longing that had woven the fabric of her life. But as the echoes of laughter faded into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the revelations ahead would change everything. And somewhere, hidden within the forgotten roll of film, lay the truth waiting to be uncovered. The night air wrapped around Emily like a cool embrace as she and Ben stepped into the garden, the distant strains of music fading behind them. The moon hung low, illuminating the intricacies of the manicured hedges and casting playful shadows on the cobblestones. Emily inhaled deeply, the scent of blooming jasmine mingling with the freshness of the evening. It was a stark contrast to the heaviness that had settled in her chest inside the ballroom. Do you remember how we used to sneak out to the old oak tree? Ben asked, his voice soft yet filled with warmth, as they drifted further from the reception's vibrant lights. We'd sit under it for hours, talking about everything and nothing. A smile tugged at Emily's lips, a fleeting spark of nostalgia igniting in her heart. Of course! You always said that tree was a portal to another world. It was, he replied, stopping to look at her, his brown eyes reflecting the moonlight. A place where we could escape from everything. School, parents, expectations. He hesitated, searching her face for a deeper understanding. You know, I've missed those moments. Just being us. Emily's heart fluttered at the words, a mix of warmth and trepidation. She turned her gaze to the garden, the vibrant flowers swaying gently in the night breeze, as if their very petals understood the turmoil within her. I've missed them too, she admitted quietly. They walked in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Emily felt the familiar pull of the past, a siren call that both intrigued and frightened her. With every step, she could almost hear the whispers of her younger self, the girl who had felt invincible and free, unburdened by the expectations that now pressed down on her shoulders like an unwelcome cloak. "Why did you come back?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "After all these years." Ben paused, the question lingering in the air. "I guess I wanted to see if you were happy," he said, his tone sincere. "I heard about your wedding, and I thought maybe it was what you wanted. But now," he took a breath, the tension between them palpable. "Now I'm not so sure." Emily closed her eyes briefly, overwhelmed by the honesty in his voice. "I'm supposed to be happy," she replied, her tone edged with uncertainty. "I thought marrying Jake would be the answer." "And is it?" Ben's gaze bore into hers, his vulnerability cutting through the layers of her confusion. "Do you feel free, or do you feel trapped?" The question hung heavy in the air, and Emily felt the crack in her facade widening. "I don't know," she confessed. "I love Jake, but—" She trailed off, the weight of her words stifling her breath. "I don't know if it's enough." "Enough for what?" Ben pressed gently, stepping closer, the garden's shadows enveloping them in a cocoon of intimacy. "To live the life you want." "I don't even know what that means anymore," she said, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I've spent so long trying to fit into this perfect life, the one everyone thinks I want. But sometimes I wonder if I'm just going through the motions." Ben's eyes softened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "You're not alone in this, Emily. You never were. You're allowed to feel lost, especially when the world expects you to have it all figured out." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord deep within her. She could feel the dam of her emotions beginning to crack, the memories of their past flooding back, a time when the world was filled with possibility, when decisions were made from the heart rather than obligations. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said, her voice trembling. "But maybe I've been living someone else's dream." "Your dream matters too," Ben insisted, his voice steady. "What do you truly want?" The question ricocheted off the walls of her mind, reverberating with disquiet. Emily inhaled sharply, the air thick with the scent of blooming night. She thought of Jake, of his unwavering support, and the life they had built together. But alongside that thought came a rush of memories with Ben, adventures, laughter, and the undeniable connection that had lingered through the years. "I don't know if I'm brave enough to find out," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Being brave doesn't mean you have to have all the answers," Ben said, his tone gentle but firm. "It just means you're willing to take the first step, even if it's small, even if it's scary." Emily looked at him, the moonlight illuminating the contours of his face, the softness in his expression. "What if I make the wrong choice?" The vulnerability in her voice cut through the night like a knife. "Every choice carries risk," he replied, stepping closer still. "But living a life that isn't yours, that's the greatest risk of all." The tension in the air shifted, a crackling energy that seemed to draw them together. Emily's heart raced as she considered the possibilities. What if she chose to be honest with herself? What if she admitted that a part of her had never let go of the dreams she once shared with Ben? But could she truly allow herself that freedom without losing everything she had? The laughter and music from the reception faded into the background as they stood in the garden, the world outside becoming a mere echo of the internal struggle raging within her. She felt raw and exposed, standing at the precipice of a choice that could redefine her life. "Emily," Ben said softly, reaching out to tuck a stray hair behind her ear. The gesture sent a shiver down her spine, igniting memories of their closeness, the unspoken bond that had always existed beneath the surface. "Whatever you decide, I'll be here. Just don't forget who you are." In that moment, Emily felt the weight of his words settle within her, a gentle reminder of the girl she had once been. But the thought of facing Jake, of confronting the life she had built, sent a wave of fear crashing over her. What would happen if she chose to embrace her true self? Would it unravel everything she had worked for? Or could it lead her to a place of genuine happiness? Suddenly, the sound of laughter echoed through the garden, A group of guests spilling out onto the terrace, their voices bright and carefree. It broke the spell that had enveloped them, pulling Emily back to the reality of the night, back to the life she currently inhabited. "We should go back," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Jake will be looking for me." Ben's expression darkened for a moment, but he nodded. "Of course. Just think about what we talked about." As they retraced their steps toward the ballroom, a sense of impending revelation loomed over Emily. She felt as though she were walking a tightrope between two worlds, the weight of her choices pressing down on her like a storm cloud, heavy with rain. She could hear the music thumping through the open doors, the joy and celebration a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within her. As they stepped back inside, the warmth of the ballroom enveloped them, the laughter and chatter washing over her like a tide. Jake stood near the bar, his gaze scanning the crowd as if he sensed her absence. The moment their eyes met, a smile broke across his face, a beacon of familiarity amidst her internal chaos. "Emily," he called, his voice cutting through the noise. "There you are. I was starting to worry." "Sorry, I just needed some fresh air," she replied, the words feeling hollow as they left her lips. She felt the weight of Ben's gaze linger on her for a moment longer, a reminder of the conversation that had just unfolded, a thread of connection she couldn't quite sever. As Jake approached, his arms wrapping around her in a warm embrace, Emily felt the familiar comfort of his presence. Yet, beneath that comfort lay a restless yearning, a question that remained unanswered. Would she ever find the courage to confront her true self? Or would she continue to live within the confines of expectation, forever haunted by the choices she hadn't made? The tension lingered, promising that the night was far from over, and the journey to self-discovery had only just begun. The music from the reception hall surged like a tide, a pulsating blend of laughter and clinking glasses that seemed to wash over Emily as she stepped back inside. The vibrant hues of the ballroom, deep burgundy and gleaming gold, contrasted sharply with the cool night air of the balconies she had just left, where her heart had danced dangerously close to the edge of a precipice. Jake stood near the entrance, his smile radiant, yet there was an undercurrent of concern etched across his brow as he caught sight of her. "There you are, I was starting to worry," he said, his voice warm but laced with an unspoken question. Emily forced a smile, the kind that felt more like a mask than an expression of joy. "Just needed a breath of fresh air," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm brewing within her. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she thought she had outgrown. "Well, you missed the cake cutting," Jake said, his tone lightening. "It was beautiful, like something out of a fairy tale. Everyone's been asking where you were." He took her hand, the warmth of his palm grounding her momentarily. As they wove through the crowd, Emily's thoughts drifted back to her conversation with Ben. His words echoed in her mind, each syllable a reminder of the path not taken, the dreams tucked away beneath layers of expectation. She glanced around the room, her gaze flitting from familiar faces to strangers, their joy contrasting sharply with her inner turmoil. "Emily!" A voice broke through her reverie. It was Sarah, her cousin, with a glass of champagne in hand. "You look a bit pale. Are you okay?" Emily nodded, forcing the smile wider. "Just a little overwhelmed, I guess. It's a big day." "Tell me about it. You're a married woman now." Sarah chuckled, but Emily could hear the thin veneer of excitement that masked her own uncertainty. As the night progressed, the music shifted from soft melodies to upbeat dance tracks, and the room swelled with energy. Jake pulled her into the throng, his enthusiasm infectious. But each twirl and dip felt like a reminder of the chasm that had opened between her heart and the reality of her life. They danced, and she felt as if she were moving beneath the surface of a vast ocean, aware of the currents but unable to break free. "Let's get some air," Jake suggested after a few songs, his breath warm against her ear. "It's getting a bit stuffy in here." With a nod, Emily followed him outside, the cool night air wrapping around her like a balm. The stars twinkled above, distant and indifferent, as if they too were spectators to her internal struggle. "See? Isn't this nice?" Jake smiled, leaning against the railing. "A perfect evening." Emily leaned beside him, her heart heavy. "It is," she agreed, but the truth felt like a ghost slipping through her fingers. Hey, he said, turning to look at her, his expression shifting. You've been a bit distant tonight. Is everything all right? She opened her mouth to respond, but the words tangled in her throat. How could she explain the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her? How could she tell him that a part of her was still tethered to the past, to Ben? I'm just processing everything, she finally said, hoping it would suffice. Jake frowned, concern deepening in his eyes. I get that. It's a big change, but I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what. The sincerity in his voice tugged at her heartstrings. I know, she whispered, her gaze dropping to the ground. I just, I feel like I'm still figuring things out. Is it about Ben? He asked, and the question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Emily's breath caught. He was just a surprise, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect to see him tonight. Jake's expression softened, but a flicker of hurt danced in his eyes. You two were close once. I know that. But you're married to me now. We're building our future together. I know, she said again, but this time it felt more like a plea than an affirmation. Just then, laughter erupted from the reception hall, and a group of guests spilled onto the balcony, breaking the moment. Emily felt a rush of relief and dread as they approached, their carefree spirits a stark contrast to her spiraling thoughts. Hey, you two, called out Melissa, a college friend, her cheeks flushed from the champagne. Join us. The dance floor is calling your names. Jake grinned and took Emily's hand, pulling her back toward the crowd. She followed, caught between the desire to please him and the haunting memories of a life she had left behind. As the night wore on, Emily found herself surrounded by laughter and celebration. Yet she felt like an outsider, a spectator to her own life. Each toast raised, each song played, felt like a reminder of the choices she had made. Jake danced with her, his movements confident and joyful, but she could hardly keep up. Her thoughts drifted back to Ben, to the connection they shared, raw and unfiltered. When the clock struck 10, the energy in the room shifted, a collective exhale as the first dance of the night gave way to the open floor. Couples began to sway, and Emily's heart raced at the thought of being pulled back into the rhythm of it all. Let's grab a drink, Jake suggested, sensing her hesitation. You want to take a break from dancing? Sure, she said, grateful for the excuse to step away from the spotlight. As they made their way to the bar, Emily noticed Ben leaning against a wall, his presence magnetic and unsettling. He caught her eye, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The laughter around her faded, the music dimming into a distant hum. It was as if the world had narrowed down to just the two of them, suspended in a moment that felt charged with unspoken possibilities or maws. Emily, he said, his voice low and inviting as she approached. Ben, she replied, her heart racing. She could feel Jake's presence beside her, a steady anchor, yet her thoughts were adrift in turbulent waters. He smiled, a hint of mischief in his eyes. Did you enjoy the cake? It was beautiful, she said, but her mind was elsewhere, drawn to the warmth radiating from him. Good. I was worried you might have missed it, he said, then turned to Jake, extending a hand. Congratulations, man. You've got a great one here. Thanks, Jake replied, his tone polite but clipped, a subtle tension sparking between the three of them. Emily felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the unspoken words hanging in the air like a thick fog. She glanced at Jake, who was watching Ben with a guarded expression, and then back at Ben, whose gaze held a depth that stirred something deep within her. Are you enjoying yourself? Ben asked, his tone shifting to something softer, more intimate. Yeah, it's just a lot, Emily admitted, her defenses crumbling as she met his gaze. Are you happy? He pressed gently, and the question cut through the noise around them like a blade. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but the words tangled in her thoughts. Could she admit the truth even to herself? Before she could answer, Jake interjected, his voice steady but edged with tension. We're having a great time, right, Emily? Right, she said, the words slipping out like a pebble into a still pond, sending ripples of uncertainty through her heart. Ben's expression shifted, a flicker of understanding passing between them. He stepped back slightly, creating a space that felt charged with unspoken emotions. I'll let you two catch up. Just know I'm here if you need anything. As he walked away, Emily's heart raced, a whirlwind of conflict swirling inside her. She turned to Jake, who was watching her, with a mixture of concern and confusion. "What was that about?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "I don't know," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'm trying to figure things out." Jake nodded slowly, the tension between them palpable. "I want you to be happy, Emily. But I need you to be honest with me." Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes as the weight of his words settled in her chest. "I don't want to hurt you," she breathed, the confession raw and heavy. "I know," he replied softly, brushing a thumb across her cheek, grounding her in the moment. "But you have to be true to yourself, whatever that looks like." Emily swallowed hard, the truth of his statement resonating deeply within her. In that instant, she realized the journey she must embark on, a path of self-discovery that would require courage she had yet to find. The night stretched before her, a myriad of choices waiting to be made, and her heart trembled at the thought of what lay ahead. With a deep breath, she stepped back from the edge of uncertainty, ready to confront the shadows that loomed over her heart. As the music swelled once more, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, a promise of revelations yet to come, and the courage to seek her own truth in the midst of it all. The music swelled, a lively waltz that floated through the air, inviting guests to the dance floor. Laughter and chatter filled the Maplewood Country Club's grand ballroom, where twinkling fairy lights hung like stars above the heads of revelers. Yet despite the joyous atmosphere, Emily Carter felt as if she were submerged in a vast ocean, the waves of expectation crashing against her, threatening to pull her under. She stood at the edge of the dance floor, her gaze darting between Jake, who was spinning their niece in playful circles, and Ben, who leaned casually against a column, his presence a magnetic pull she couldn't quite resist. The warmth of the room contrasted sharply with the chill of the night air she had breathed outside just moments before, a lingering reminder of the weight of her choice. "Are you ready to dance?" Jake approached her, his brows furrowed with concern, the edges of his smile still bright. He extended his hand, his eyes searching hers for the spark he had adored since their first date. Emily hesitated, her heart fluttering uncomfortably in her chest. "I just need a moment," she replied, her voice faltering. She could see the flicker of disappointment in Jake's eyes, but felt trapped within the conflicting emotions that swirled around her like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. "Sure, take your time," Jake said, his voice steady, even as his expression dimmed. He turned back toward the dance floor, where their family and friends twirled in uninhibited joy, leaving Emily to grapple with the whirlwind of her thoughts. As she watched him disappear into the throng, a wave of guilt washed over her. How many times had she seen that look on his face? The worry, the questioning. Each time she had brushed it aside, convincing herself that it was just the stress of wedding planning and the excitement of starting their new life together. But tonight, everything felt different, charged with the unresolved tension that hung in the air like the scent of the fresh-cut roses that adorned the tables. "Hey!" Ben's voice broke through her reverie. He stepped closer, his eyes holding a depth that sent a shiver down her spine. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she said, the word feeling heavy on her tongue. "Just trying to catch my breath." She glanced at him, then quickly focused on her shoes, the polished wood floor reflecting her inner turmoil. "You're leaving soon, right?" "Tomorrow morning," he replied, his tone softening. "I hate to leave this early, but it's time to move on." "Right," Emily murmured, her heart sinking at the thought of him going. "You'll be back in town?" "Maybe for visits, but not for a while." He shifted his weight, looking as if he wanted to say more, but the moment hung between them, charged with unspoken words. She took a shaky breath, the weight of her choices pressing down on her. "You're really going to Chicago then?" "Yeah, it's a good opportunity," he replied, his smile faltering slightly. "But it's not just the job, Em. It's about finding my place in the world. I've been stuck here for too long." Emily felt the sting of his words as if he were speaking to her in riddles. "Stuck," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is that how you feel?" "Sometimes, and I think you might feel the same way." His gaze bore into hers, the intensity of his expression causing her heart to race. "You're at a crossroads, Emily. You can choose to follow the path laid out for you, or you can forge your own." A lump formed in her throat, a mixture of fear and longing. What if I don't know how? Ben stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then you figure it out. But don't let yourself get lost in what others expect of you. You deserve to be happy. The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her like a warm blanket, igniting a flicker of hope she hadn't realized she was missing. She looked into his eyes, searching for answers, but all she found was a reflection of her own confusion. Dance with me, she blurted out before she could think better of it. Ben's surprise was palpable, but he quickly masked it with a smile. Sure, I'd love to. As he took her hand, a thrill rushed through her, a spark of electricity igniting the air between them. They moved toward the dance floor, where couples twirled and laughed, unaware of the quiet storm brewing just outside their circle of light. Once they found a spot, Ben pulled her close, their bodies swaying to the music. Emily felt the warmth radiating from him, the familiar scent of his cologne and the softness of his shirt grounding her in this moment. Her heart raced, not just from the closeness, but from the flood of memories that washed over her. The late-night talks, the laughter, the dreams they once shared. Do you remember that summer we spent at the lake? Benin asked, his voice low and reminiscent. We thought we could conquer the world. Of course, she replied, a smile breaking through her apprehension. We were so naive. Naive, maybe, but we were also free. His gaze held hers, a silent challenge that made her pulse quicken. What do you want, Emily? What do you really want? The question hung between them, potent and fragile. She felt the weight of his eyes, urging her to reveal the truth she had buried deep within her heart. The music faded into the background, the laughter of their friends becoming a distant echo. I want, she hesitated, the words catching in her throat. I want to feel alive again. Ben's expression softened, and he nodded as if he understood. Then don't be afraid to make that happen. In that moment, the world around them faded, leaving only the two of them suspended in time. Emily could hear the beat of her heart, a steady rhythm that echoed the longing in her soul. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed between her past and present, but fear gripped her. What would that mean for Jake? For her life? As the song came to a close, Ben stepped back slightly, allowing her to breathe. You should go back to Jake, he suggested, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of sadness. He's worried about you. She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. I know, don't overthink it, he said gently, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. Just be honest with yourself. With that, he stepped away, and the distance felt unbearable. Emily watched him blend back into the crowd, the laughter and chatter returning to her ears like an unwelcome reminder of the world she had momentarily escaped. She turned towards the table where Jake had been sitting, her heart heavy with the knowledge of the choices she faced. As she approached him, she could see the concern etched on his face, a reflection of the love and care he held for her. Hey, he said, his voice laced with worry. You okay? I'm fine, she lied, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. Just a little distracted, he probed, tilting his head as if trying to see into her thoughts. Yeah, just thinking. She paused, the truth weighing heavily on her. About everything. Jake's expression softened. You know I'm here for you, right? Whatever you're feeling, you can talk to me. She felt the warmth of his hand on her arm, grounding her in this moment, yet the weight of her unspoken truth hung heavily between them, an invisible barrier that threatened to fracture their fragile world. Can we go outside for a minute? She asked, her heart racing. I need some air. Sure. Jake nodded, concern flickering in his eyes. He took her hand, leading her through the jubilant crowd and out onto the balcony. The cool night air enveloped them, a refreshing balm against the festivity that now felt distant and foreign. Once outside, the stars twinkled overhead, a vast canvas of possibilities stretching into infinity. Emily leaned against the railing, grateful for the solitude, but her heart raced as she felt Jake's presence beside her, waiting, hopeful. Emily, what's going on? He asked, his voice steady and careful. You've been off all night. I can feel it. Taking a deep breath, she turned to face him, the words swirling in her mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind. I don't know how to say this, but I feel lost. Jake's expression shifted, concern deepening. Lost? What do you mean? I mean, she started, the weight of her emotions surging to the surface. I've been thinking about everything. About us, about what I want. I feel like I'm living a life that isn't truly mine. Jake's face fell, the worry etched in his features. Emily, I thought we were building a life together. Isn't that what we've always wanted? Yes, but she struggled to find the right words, each one a step closer to an abyss she feared to face. I love you, Jake, but I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm losing myself in the process. The silence between them deepened, a chasm filled with unspoken fears and hopes. Jake's brow furrowed, his eyes searching hers for understanding, for clarity. What do you want? The question echoed in her mind, the answer teetering on the edge of her consciousness. She thought of Ben, of the life she had almost forgotten, the dreams they had once shared, the spark of freedom that had always been a part of her. I want to find my own path, she confessed, the words tumbling out like stones from a heavy sack. I want to feel alive again, to be true to myself. Jake's expression shifted, pain flickering across his features. But what does that mean for us? She felt the weight of his question press down on her, a truth she couldn't escape. I don't know yet. I just need time to figure things out. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when I feel like I'm unraveling inside. Emily, he started, but she held up her hand, stopping him. I need space, she said, her voice trembling but firm. To breathe, to think. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't ignore what I'm feeling any longer. The air between them thickened, a silence that felt heavy with unspoken emotions. Jake's face shifted, hurt and confusion mingling in his eyes. I just want you to be happy. I know, she whispered, her heart breaking at the thought of hurting him. But I can't be happy if I'm not being true to myself. He nodded slowly, the fight leaving his posture. Okay, I get it. Just promise me you won't completely disappear. I promise, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I just need to find my way. As they stood there, the distance between them felt both freeing and suffocating. Emily took a deep breath, the cool night air filling her lungs with clarity. She knew she was standing at a crossroads, the path ahead uncertain and fraught with challenges. But for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope stirring within her, a glimmer of the life she longed to reclaim. And in that moment, she realized that sometimes finding oneself meant embracing the unknown, even if it meant leaving behind the familiar comforts of love and expectation. As the stars twinkled above, Emily took a step forward, ready to embark on the journey of self-discovery that lay ahead. A journey that would lead her to the truth hidden within the forgotten roll of film that had yet to be exposed.